How's it going, everyone? In this video, I'm going to be discussing the last SaaS or software as a service application that I did an official launch for. And in particular, I'm going to be focusing in on exactly how much money I made from that launch. So welcome back to the channel, everyone. Philip Schaefer here. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and click that little bell right next to it for more videos like this focused on SaaS, business, marketing, and passive income in general. Also, if you're interested in creating your own software or SaaS application, you might want to check out my free case study, which covers my software as a service strategy in detail. I'll leave the link for that in the description down below. With all of that out of the way, let's dive right in. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with what SaaS apps are, really quickly, they're essentially just software or apps paid for via some sort of subscription fee. Some popular SaaS businesses include Netflix, Spotify, Shopify, Adobe's Creative Cloud products like Photoshop and Illustrator, etc. So essentially, I made something in the vein of those sorts of web-based SaaS applications. And for this particular software, we did a big launch event to try and generate hype for the software, as well as get a bunch of customers and revenue up front. So how much revenue did we generate from our 5-day launch event? Well, it ended up being a bit shy of 6 figures in gross revenue. But if you've watched my earlier video on how much money I made from my very first SaaS application, and I'll leave a link in the description for that video, you'll know that when it comes to launches, gross revenue can be very, very different from net profit. Now, before I get into the exact numbers of how much money I made from this launch event for this particular software, let me give you a quick background on what exactly the app is and how I went about making it. So this particular app that I developed was a relatively niche sort of product in the business to business marketing space. That is, it's an app meant to help other businesses market their own products. And more specifically, the app I developed was a webinar platform. It's called Webinar Kit if you want to check it out, link in the description down below. Now, webinars are essentially just online seminars. You set a time and date for your online seminar, a bunch of people can register to view your event, and then when it's time, everyone goes and views your video or seminar online. In some ways, it's kind of similar to YouTube's video premiere events. There's just something special about watching an event live with other people, even if the video is actually pre-recorded. But more importantly, believe it or not, webinars are one of the most effective ways to sell things online, especially higher priced products. That's why a ton of businesses today are starting to utilize webinars more and more in their marketing. And I personally know a couple of people who pretty much exclusively focus on selling their products via webinars today, and they make somewhere in the range of $20,000 to $40,000 each and every month. So seeing those guys succeed with webinars is one of the reasons I decided to implement them in my own business. So I signed up for one of the popular webinar solutions at the time. I won't say the name of the company, but it was one of the really well-known platforms. And truthfully, I wasn't super happy with it. It was pretty expensive, somewhere in the ballpark of around $500 a year, and I didn't really think the feature set it provided was anything special. And that kind of got me thinking. I thought to myself, I could make this and probably do a better job. And on top of that, I could probably undercut these guys by a significant margin price-wise. So that's essentially how I got the idea of building my last SaaS application. So I spent a solid chunk of 2019 building the MVP or minimum viable product for this application. And while I was putting this app together, I forget exactly how the conversation started, but me and one of my good marketing friends who had a lot of experience with launching products discussed potentially doing a big fancy one-time launch event for my software. Now, in general, what's the point of a big launch event? Well, pretty much it's just an easy way to generate a lot of hype and customers for your product. Because if you have a new product that no one's ever seen before, it's new, it's exciting, people want to see what it brings to the table, etc. And in particular, these types of product launches tend to attract a lot of affiliates. So affiliates are essentially just people that promote products to their own audiences. And in return for promoting that product or your product, they're given some cut of the profits. And believe it or not, there's like this whole corner of the internet that's just kind of devoted to creating and promoting products via these big one-time launch events and attracting affiliates. But More on that in another video. The point here is that me and my friend decided to team up for this launch and do one of these big fancy one-time launch events in order to hopefully kickstart the software with a bang and bring in a bunch of revenue. And we also ended up recruiting a third partner for this launch event, and this guy's job was essentially to just attract as many affiliates as possible to our launch event. So long story short, after building this software in the latter half of 2019 and a few more months of preparation, Webinar Kit launched in February of 2020. With that little history lesson done, let's dive right into the revenue numbers and profit generated from this launch event. So we launched Webinar Kit on two well-known affiliate platforms, JVZoo and Warrior Plus. So we have two sets of revenue numbers to look at here. The launch took place over a 5-day period, with the vast majority of our sales coming in during that 5-day period, with a few more trickling in here and there since then. Looking at our JVZoo numbers, you can see the launch brought in somewhere around $49,000. Meanwhile, on Warrior Plus, you can see the launch brought in somewhere around $30,000. That gives us a grand total of somewhere around $79,000. Not bad for just 5 days, right? Well, hold on, because there's a ton of expenses that we have to sort out before we arrive at the actual profit that I generated from this launch event. First off, remember that whole thing about affiliates I just mentioned? Well, in the launch space, the industry standard commission rate, or the reward that you give to affiliates, is somewhere around 50%. So that means for every sale that an affiliate drives or generates, you're giving that affiliate somewhere around 50% of that payout. And this is done as an incentive to attract affiliates and get them on board to promote your product. So we stuck to that industry standard, so that means right away you can essentially chop off 50% from that gross revenue number. Now, not all of our sales came from affiliates, but let's just say roughly 50% of the revenue went to affiliates. So that $79,000 is immediately cut down to around $39,500. And again, because a decent chunk of sales did not actually come from affiliates, let's just make it an even $40,000 just to make it a little bit simpler. Now, on top of that, remember there were 3 partners for this launch event. Now, because I was the one who built the software from the ground up, I commanded a bigger share of the overall profit. 40% of the profit went to me. Meanwhile, my 2 partners split the remaining 60%. So applying 40% to $40,000, my share of the profits is cut down to $16,000. But hold on, there's still more expenses to go here. So let's apply the payment processor and affiliate platform fees. That's somewhere around 8% of the gross revenue right there. So that brings that $16,000 down to about $14,720. Now you might think, finally, I'm done with all the expenses, but you'd be dead wrong, because we have to account for prize money, because for launch events, one of the ways you attract affiliates is with bonus prize money given to the affiliates that drive the most sales. And also there are costs associated with creating the various sales pages and sales videos. That can be pretty pricey as well. And a bunch of random smaller expenses like retargeting ads, virtual assistant costs, etc. So all of those various other expenses that I just mentioned combined add up to another $9,000. And because me and my partners were splitting the profits and expenses equally, I actually had a slightly higher burden to pay in terms of expenses. So 40% of that $9,000 number is $3,600, and that's what came out of my share of the profits. So with all of those calculations out of the way, I finally have the grand total for my net profit from the Webinar Kit launch event, and it is $11,120. Like I said earlier, when it comes to these software launches, gross revenue and net profits can be very different. But still, at the end of the day, after just a 5-day launch period, I'd broken into the 5-figure threshold for profit, so I was relatively pleased with these initial results. And of course, just because the launch event is over doesn't mean that the business just comes to an end. In fact, I'd say the real work begins after the launch event. Essentially, after the launch, Webinar Kit did a transition over to a more traditional SaaS pricing plan, away from the special pricing that we did just for this limited time launch event. So that means now we're trying to build up users and subscribers on our regular non-launch pricing plans. But I'll save that topic for a different video. Now, in addition to the upfront revenue I earned from this launch, I also gained another really powerful asset that I want to touch upon. and that asset is the emails of all the various customers who actually purchased this software. And this is a really powerful asset because it lets you tap into the power of email marketing. With an email list of targeted customers, you have a direct way of communicating with people that are interested in your products and similar products. So for example, if I launched another software, which I have, I can send emails to these customers and market that new software, and that will help speed up the growth of any future software or products that I launch right away. Or alternatively, if we add paid upgrades to Webinar Kit, using email marketing with this list of customers is a great way to advertise these new features. Another strategy that a lot of people rely on with regards to emails is affiliate marketing, which we did touch upon earlier. So if I see another software out there that I think would provide value to my customers, becoming an affiliate for that software is a great way to bring in additional revenue. So all of these things that I just mentioned are strategies that I did employ after the Webinar Kit launch to bring in additional revenue. So again, the email list you get from these one-time launch events can be a major asset for any business. So there you have it. That's how much I made from the official launch for my last SaaS application, Webinar Kit. As I mentioned in my last video, I'm a big fan of creating and selling software, especially the software as a service model in general. I would definitely recommend it to anyone who wants to add some extra passive income to their bottom line and potentially even create a full-time income out of their ideas one day. Especially if you have even just a little bit of programming experience, that really is enough to get started with building your idea. Even if you don't have any coding experience, there's so many free coding resources and tutorials online today, so there's really no reason to at least give it a shot. Also, if you want to get the details on my general software as a service strategy and see how I went about creating my first SaaS application, again, be sure to check out my free case study. You can find the link for that in the description down below. And if you're at all interested in building your very own SaaS app and you want to get started right away, I do have a course which essentially walks you through building a fully fledged SaaS application in step-by-step detail. In the course, you essentially watch over my shoulder and follow along as we build a SaaS app with real-world features from the ground up in literally just hours. So again, if getting into SaaS development is your thing, I do recommend checking that out. I'll leave the link to the course down in the description below as well. Lastly, guys, if you like this video and you want more content on SaaS business and passive income in general, definitely go ahead and subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button as well. With all that said, everyone, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.